Well, good evening, everyone. Hi there. Welcome to Dome at Home, a brand new production of the Manitoba Museum's Planetarium. We are going to be going live every Thursday to our audience here at 7 o'clock every week, doing all sorts of astronomy-related things. You should be able to hear me at this point. We are using the chat window to communicate, so if you're watching us on Zoom, please move your mouse around. You'll get some options at the bottom of your screen, and then you'll be able to see the chat window. That's where you can ask any questions. My colleague Mike will be in the chat window answering questions and helping you out if you have any technical stuff. We're also broadcasting live to Facebook. If you have questions on Facebook, you can put them into the comments, and Mike will be checking those as well. We will be running a show about 30 minutes, and then at the end, I'll drop over to the Facebook page, and we can ask and answer any more questions that you might have that that may have come up that we didn't get to in the show. So we're going to get right into things right away. The great thing about the sky is that it is something that is accessible to everyone to some degree. We can all go outside, we can all look at the sky. Even if you live in a bright city with lots of streetlights, you can still see some stars and some planets. And we've found that looking at the sky has been a very popular pandemic pastime. As people are spending more time at home and not going out and doing things as much, they're going out and looking at the sky and taking advantage of the things that they have in their own backyard, so to speak. So that's really what our program is about. Of course, this is sponsored by the province of Manitoba's Safe at Home program, which enables us to bring this show to you every week for the next 3 months. We're very excited about that. The program is delivered live, and we will be doing a variety of different things. We'll go into the simulated night sky using the planetarium magic and help you find constellations. We'll show you where planets are. You'll work along with us, and we'll build some tools to help you in your stargazing adventures. And we'll follow some breaking news stories and exciting things that are happening in the world of space exploration and astronomy around the world as well. So we do have a number of people that have joined us. The audience is growing very quickly here, so it's great to see you all. If you want to tell us where you're from, we would love to know where you're watching from. And also tell us how many people are watching. Are you watching by yourself? Do you have a few people around the monitor, or you're casting it to the TV or whatever? Let us know. It's great to know how many people that we're reaching with our programs here. All right. Our program is called Dome at Home, and the subtitle, The Stars Belong to Everyone. We'll get to that in just a second, but the idea is that this show will be weekly. It'll focus on what's up in the sky over the next week or so. If it was clear tonight, wherever you're watching from, you could go outside with the information that we talk about and see these things in the sky right tonight. If it's cloudy where you are, like it is for me here in Winnipeg, you can do it tomorrow night or the next night or any time in the next week. On our website, there are a number of resources, including star maps and hands-on activity that you can download, and that'll help you out in the week before the next show as well. Wow, I'm seeing all of these comments going by. Lots of folks from here in Winnipeg, some folks all the way down in North Dakota and South Dakota, up in the Paw. Oh, that's fantastic. It's great to see so many people. Okay. The Stars Belong to Everyone is sort of a philosophy that we use to create this show. It's actually the book title by Dr. Helen Sawyer Hogg. When I was a kid, I learned about Dr. Hogg's illustrious career as a pioneering Canadian astronomer. She was working at the Dominion Astrophysical Observatory out in Victoria. Then they moved to Toronto to work at the University of Toronto. She's been involved in astronomy for her career spanned about 50 years. And one of the great things that I admire about her, besides her research acumen and her ability to come up with the science side of things, was that she was very, very keen on popularizing astronomy, of sharing astronomy with the general people, because she realized that people get excited about the stars and the planets. And sometimes they don't want to hear all of the math behind it, or they don't want to hear all of the scientific details, but they want that first little bit. And so when she wrote her book, she settled on the stars belong to everyone, because they really are something that's visible to all of us. Everyone across the country right now is basically seeing pretty much the same stars. I mean, there's some variation if you're in the southern hemisphere or things like that, but the stars are the same stars that people have seen for thousands of years. When we look at the stars, there's a link between us and all of the people that have ever existed on Earth. And that's kind of a comforting feeling. The other thing about the stars is that when you get out under the stars, you are part of nature. You are considering the bigger questions. You are not worrying about what you saw in the news that evening or what's going on at work or at school or things like that. You are able to sort of shed those earthly concerns and look up at the sky and see all of these amazing sights, and for a minute, lift yourself out of all of that stress. So that is the goal of our program, and we're going to get right into things. The topic for the show this week is the 3 planets that were visible to the unaided eye in the evening sky. There are 3 planets. If it was clear right now, you could have walked outside and over the course of the last 2 hours seen 3 different planets in the sky. Let's take a look at them, and we'll start there. Actually, 2 of them have been in the sky for quite a while. In fact, Jupiter and Saturn have been gracing the evening sky for months now, and you probably heard the recent conjunction or grouping of those 2 planets, Jupiter and Saturn, coming together on December 21st when they were at their closest. They're still technically visible with difficulty if you go out right after the sun sets. This is the sky 5:15. The sun is just set, and over in the southwest, very low, you'll probably be able to see Jupiter, unless you have buildings or trees or things like that in the way. If you have a nice flat horizon, you should be able to see Jupiter. Saturn will be tougher. It's quite faint and it's a little bit lower down, but it is visible there in the southwestern part of the sky. They look like stars to us, and for thousands of years they've looked just like stars, but if you watch them, they move around. They're not always in the same spot. Now, today, with modern technology, we know that Jupiter is a massive gas giant world. A huge planet could fit 1,000 Earths inside it. It is made of hydrogen and helium, and it is covered in all of these storms and tornadoes and hurricanes throughout the atmosphere. The Juno spacecraft is in orbit around Jupiter right now, and it's taking these amazing pictures of the clouds of Jupiter. It is an amazing planet to see through a small telescope, and it is kind of amazing that we can see it, 800 million kilometers away or so, just with our eyes from our backyard. Now, Jupiter has a number of different moons around it. It's the largest planet. It has a lot of gravity, and that means there are a lot of objects that stay in orbit around it. It's kind of like a miniature solar system all on its own. Some of the moons of Jupiter are actually as big as some of the smaller planets, so it kind of blurs the distinctions there. The moons are visible in a pair of binoculars. If you happen to have binoculars, that's just enough magnification to start to show them. But if you don't, that's okay. You can see them here online. The great thing about the moons of Jupiter is that if we find life somewhere in our solar system, I mean, besides the Earth, if we find any kind of life somewhere, I bet that it will be on one of the moons of Jupiter, because 3 of the biggest moons of Jupiter, they're basically made out of water. You probably know water is essential for life here on Earth. Wherever there's water on the Earth, there's living things. And maybe that's true of other places where there are water. This is an image of Europa, and Europa is basically a giant rocky world with a worldwide ocean. The top of it's frozen because it's cold out where Jupiter is. So the top 10 kilometers of the ocean or so is frozen solid into ice. But we know that the water's there because there are water volcanoes and water geysers that come spraying out that change the surface. Is there something swimming around in that ocean on Europa? Well, we don't know yet. We haven't gone there. We haven't landed. I mean, you'd have to basically build a spaceship that would go all the way there, land on the ice, turn on some heaters or something like that to melt its way all the way down 10 kilometers through the ice, and then turn into a submarine and start swimming around and turn on some lights and cameras and things like that. Pretty complicated exploration. That mission's on the drawing board right now, though. And so hopefully, if that gets approved, we may get to swim around, at least virtually, in the oceans of Europa and see what we discover there. The other planet that we mentioned, Saturn, is probably one of the most beautiful sights in the solar system. It is a gorgeous gas giant planet like Jupiter, but it has these glorious rings that go all the way around it. Here it looks like there's 3 or 4 different rings nestled inside each other. There's actually thousands of rings. And as we see from this image from the Cassini spacecraft, the rings are all very well ordered, it seems. They're also very thin. They're about 10 meters thick and 150,000 kilometers across. So if you want to make a scale model, that's thinner than a piece of paper is compared to its size. The rings aren't solid either. Oh, we have a question from Phil. A 3-inch refractor, can a 3-inch refractor see Jupiter or Saturn? Absolutely. The problem is right now those planets are so low that they are going to be kind of tough to spot. And even if you do see them in your telescope, they won't probably look the best because they're very low to the horizon. If you wait a few months, they'll reappear in the morning sky, and we'll be able to talk about good views of that. Saturn has beautiful moons as well. It has a number of, oh, here's just a close-up of the clouds. This one I have on my wall here in the office because it just looks like a piece of abstract art, but it's actually, you know, the clouds of Saturn, a science image as well. This is Titan, the largest moon in the solar system, and it has an atmosphere that is very similar to the early Earth's atmosphere. Before there were plants on the Earth that took in the carbon dioxide and made oxygen and changed the atmosphere to something that we like, there was, oh, and we have a little bit of a weird green screening thing happening. There was this kind of methane atmosphere, and that is basically what we see on Titan. So those 2 planets, visible right after sunset, which is really kind of cool. There's a 3rd planet. This one's easier to see. And in fact, if you take a look at the view that we're showing now, this is kind of the sky that you would see around now, 7:30, heading, looking directly south. There's not a whole lot of bright stars in that area of the sky, but there is one really bright star that's about, 2/3 of the way up the sky. You know, you're looking up pretty high. That's not a star. It's kind of an orangey yellow object, the red planet Mars. So tonight you can go outside and see Mars. Mars has also been in the sky for a number of months. It sort of was at its best last fall, and it's just coming to the end of its visibility. But it's famous, of course, as the red planet, and it's also famous as, you know, being the place where we look for life, because we've always dreamt about whether there were Martians there or not. There's no Martians there now. There are certainly no signs of any kind of advanced life or even any kind of life so far. But there used to be lots of water. There is so much water, or there was so much water, that there are lakes and riverbeds and oceans and river deltas, all the things that we see here on Earth that water makes. Mars is covered with that stuff. There used to be water there. Does that mean there used to be life? Well, we don't know. We haven't found it yet. There are 3 spacecraft on the way to Mars right now. They'll arrive in February, and we'll cover those in future shows, and they're going to hopefully try and answer that question for us, because it is pretty amazing to consider that there's a planet right next door, literally, that had all this water. It would be interesting to know one way or the other if life ever got started there or not.
Scott, there's a great question on Zoom right now about life in our galaxy. Do you want to take that while you're talking about it right now?
Great. Yeah, that's perfect. Thanks, Mike. That's our colleague Mike there, who's sort of running things behind the scenes. How can we tell if there's unknown life live in our galaxy? That's a great question. The thing about life is that if it's close to us, we can look for it. If it's far from us, almost certainly there's life out there somewhere, but it might not matter very much. The thing is, I mean, you look at the universe, the Milky Way galaxy contains 400 billion stars. Probably half of those have solar systems and planets and things like that. There's just so many worlds out there. What are the odds that we on Earth are the only ones with life? So I'm pretty sure that there is life out there somewhere. Whether we'll ever be able to talk to it or find out about it, though, is another matter, because these things are so far away that, you know, if there's another civilization that is 25,000 light years away, well, that means our radio communications with them would be a 25,000 year trip one way or the other. So you could say hello, and 25,000 years they would get that message and have to figure out what it meant and so on. And then they could send a message back saying, hello yourself. And that would take 25,000 years. And by that point, everybody involved would be dead. So it's the kind of thing where, unless there's some kind of physics that we're missing, really distant civilizations are just, it would be nice to know about them, but they're kind of an academic kind of thing. We are listening for their radio. And you know what? I think we'll have to do a whole show on this topic, because I just thought of about 12 more things that I could say to answer that question. So we'll put that on the list for a future one. Thanks a lot for the idea. All right. We're going to move through Mars fairly quickly here, because I want to make sure that I can get to some more questions. If I don't get to your question, remember, we'll join you on Facebook after the show, and I'll have a bit more flexibility of time there. The 3 spacecraft on the way. We've got the United Arab Emirates, their very first space probe, the American spacecraft, and the Chinese rover. This is the Chinese rover here. It's going to land and drive around and take pictures and so on. The NASA rover, the American one, is another one that will drive around. It'll drill down into the surface. The thing that I really am excited to see is it's taking a helicopter drone. There's never been a flying thing on Mars before. The air is very thin, so it's kind of hard. But if you think about those great drone shots that you see in movies and TV shows all the time, where you get this huge panoramic view, I'm really looking forward to seeing that kind of imaging from the red planet Mars. Okay, we're going to move on to a few other topics here. I had this show put together a few days ago, and then last night I was out with my telescope just in the backyard, and I came in for a warm-up break around 8:30 or so, then went back out, took a few more pictures and so on. And then when I got up this morning, I saw all of these reports of this amazing meteor, fireball, that came shooting across the sky about 8:30. It was apparently an amazing sight. I literally missed it by a few minutes, and I'm kicking myself. We are lucky, though, because I talked to a few folks today who managed to get it on video. So here's a security camera footage of that meteor that happened a little bit after, between 8:15 and 8:20 last night. We'll let this loop a few times. You probably saw it in the upper right there. So this camera, you can see no stars in the sky. Like, it's not a sensitive camera. It's looking at the ground. It's designed for security. So this meteor must be exceedingly bright. And you see it lights up the whole ground there. It explodes. This is a really amazing sight. If you saw it, you should be counting your blessings, because it's a once-in-a-lifetime kind of sighting. I hear about them a lot. I've not seen one like this. This looks like one of the better ones that have ever happened here in Manitoba. A number of people that saw it reported it to the International Meteor Organization, and so this is the plot of that event. And it seems like it was seen all the way from up into the Interlake in Manitoba, into northwestern Ontario. There were some folks in Kenora that saw it, and all the way down into North Dakota, and all the way to Minneapolis. So it was very, very widely seen. It was probably a rock from space, a very small asteroid, about the size of an orange. Couple of inches across, that's it. You wouldn't think that this would give off that kind of fireworks display, but remember, it's coming in from outer space at 20 or 30 or 40,000 kilometers an hour. This thing is just streaking in, and when it hits the atmosphere, it basically has to go through the same kind of thing that spacecraft do when they come back to Earth. You know, the Soyuz spacecraft and the old space shuttle and things like that, they would come through, and there would be this re-entry and a fireball and stuff like that, and they had to have a heat shield. This doesn't have a heat shield. And so when it comes through the atmosphere, it just vaporizes. And all of that speed energy gets turned into light energy and heat energy. And we can see it down here on the ground. If you got to see it, please visit the International Meteor Organization website. Mike will put the link into our chat window there and also on Facebook. The more of these reports that we get, you can sort of see here, and actually let's get to the sort of zoom in. Most of the reports were from the left-hand side of the path. This blue path here, it started on the bottom right and it went very steep angle down towards just, you know, sort of northwest of Kenora over towards Malachi, and so any pieces might have come down sort of in the White Shell area of Manitoba. We're not sure if pieces have come down. This is just sort of, you know, a heads up. We're still waiting and collecting some of these reports, but it's pretty exciting to see all of these kinds of things. And like I say, I'm kicking myself for missing it. They're not predicted in advance though. Anytime you're out under the sky, in your backyard, at a park, even looking out the window, something like this could happen and you could wind up getting to see a giant fireball burn up and disappear in the atmosphere. Very, very exciting kinds of things. So the more time you spend under the sky, the more time you're going to have to see things like this. Okay, we're going to move on here. We do have a section that I like to call Connect the Dots. It's about, basically it's about the constellations. Many people have looked at the sky before and have not been able to find constellations. You sort of think, oh yeah, there's all these pictures up there and they're named for gods and goddesses, and there's, you know, Orion the Hunter and the Great Bear and Leo the Lion and stuff like that. Yeah, that's not what they look like. I mean, let's face it, the stars are little dots and you can connect the dots however you want, but there's still only so many dots up there. And you know, when they're making constellations, you can't just add some to make the picture easier to find. So you're kind of stuck with the stars that are up there. And so the constellations are more named in honor of something than they are actually named because they look like something. So today we're going to look at the northern part of the sky. We do have on our website a series of star maps. We've made these maps that basically look in all directions. So rather than the old complicated round maps and things like that, this one basically you just hold it up and face the direction it says, so north in this case, and it shows you what you can see in front of it. The northern part of the sky is kind of useful to know about because it's the kind of thing that doesn't change very much. I mean, the things move around in the sky, but the things in the north are visible generally for the entire year at some point. So right now you can go outside and see some constellations in the north, and then you'll see the same one 6 months from now. They'll be in a different spot, but they'll still be up there. We always like to start by, you know, this is what people sort of expect to see, and that's really not what you're going to see up there. Even some of the images with, you know, the lines and things like that aren't really that easy to find. But the one that really does look like what it's sort of named after is something called the Big Dipper. The Big Dipper at this time of the year is down low in the northeast, and so it is basically a fairly low thing to see right now. You can't see it if you got buildings or things like that. I can't see it from my backyard because my neighbor's tree is in the way. But the Big Dipper is a good group of stars to know about because it can really help us find other things around in the sky. And so for some of you, this may be old hat, but I like to lay the groundwork. Every week we're going to be looking at different constellations, and you'll be able to go outside with our star maps and then find these things in the real sky. This is, you add a few more stars. This is supposed to look like the Great Bear. That's a pretty complicated kind of pattern. I don't think it really looks like a bear to me, but I've learned the star pattern that's up there, and so that's what I look for now when I'm looking for the constellations. Somehow that's how it's supposed to look like a bear, and this bear has a really long tail. So there's some legends and stories about that as well that we won't get into right now. The Big Dipper is really useful though, because you can use the two stars in the bowl of the Big Dipper to point up to this sort of nondescript star. That it's not the brightest star in the sky. It's not particularly interesting except for the fact that it is directly in the north, and it is always in the north. That's the star Polaris, or the North Star, and it is always in that same spot. The whole sky sort of spins around it like a wheel, but that star stays in one spot. So you can use it to find your directions at night. Ancient mariners used it to navigate across the oceans. It's pretty impressive that this is still visible to us. Even in the city, you can generally see the North Star without too much trouble. The North Star is part of a group called the Little Dipper. That you can't see from inside the city very easily. The stars are just too faint, so don't worry too much about it. If you can see the Big Dipper and Polaris, the North Star, you're doing pretty good. Now we're going to zoom out a little bit here. I sort of took a step back. You can still see the Big Dipper down at the bottom there. Polaris is right in the middle of the frame, but I needed to make the map big enough because there is a third constellation I wanted to point out that is visible only, basically it's straight up overhead. And so we had to expand this map. There's the horizon at the bottom there, the curved line, and then it stretches all the way up to directly over your head. So we still have the Big Dipper, the pointer stars that point to the North Star. If you sort of continued in that direction and just pulled off to the side a bit, you wind up at a star group called Cassiopeia the Queen. Now, Cassiopeia the Queen is a great constellation if you live downtown or around a lot of buildings, because it's right up over your head. So usually the horizon might be blocked by things, but usually you can see straight up, so that's useful. If you are in the city and you have a lot of lights around, you can use a sort of a little tool here. We put these together. This is our star shield. It's literally just a cracker box that I painted black on the outside. I'll probably decorate it with some stars or constellations at some point. And you look through it kind of like binoculars. Now, it doesn't make things look closer, but what it does do is it blocks out all the lights coming from the side and lets you focus just on the stars. So you can use it and sort of look up into the sky, and it will make it easier for you to see things without being distracted by all the lights in the city. So Cassiopeia is supposed to be a queen sitting on her throne here. Let's sort of zoom in here. There's Queen Cassiopeia. I don't know how those stars make that picture, but that's okay. Queen Cassiopeia is, legend says she's very beautiful and also very vain. You can see she's admiring herself in the mirror there. And she's the kind of person that, you know, she was beautiful and she knew it, and she would tell everybody all about it, how beautiful she was. And in fact, she would even brag that she was more beautiful than this queen or that queen, or more beautiful than whoever, and kind of got on everyone's nerves. Her husband, King Cepheus, he sort of put up with it. You know, you do a lot when you're in a relationship, but the rest of the world was not thrilled with it. But one day she went too far. She started to compare her beauty to some of the immortal creatures and even the gods and goddesses of the time. And she claimed to be more beautiful than the sea nymphs. If you've seen The Little Mermaid, all the mermaids, those are basically the sea nymphs, the daughters of King Neptune. And King Neptune was having none of this. He did not want some humans saying that they were more beautiful than his daughters. So King Neptune sent a sea monster, Cetus, to ravage Queen Cassiopeia's kingdom. We'll meet Cetus, the sea monster, in our next episode next week. Many of these constellations are tied together by stories, and they actually help you remember which stories are there. Oh, Phil, Cassiopeia was the first constellation you identified. You know what? It's right up there for me as well. It looks like, to me, it looks like the letter W, or at this time of the year, it's flipped around. So the letter M, pretty easy to spot. The stars are all very bright. And so even from inside the city, this is a pretty easy one to see. And like I say, at this time of the year, it's a great time to be able to see it because it's up so high. On our website, we have a star map that you can build yourself. It comes just as a sheet of paper. You can print it out on cardstock and cut it out, or you can glue it onto some cardboard or foam or things like that. It's got a little star map that has the Big Dipper, the North Star, and Cassiopeia on it. And then it has a calendar wheel and a time wheel, this one here. And the instructions are available on there, but basically I just use a little push pin and I stick them into a little piece of cork or foam board or whatever, and you wind up with an adjustable star map that allows you to set the time and the date, and then you'll know where to find the Big Dipper and the North Star and Cassiopeia. You will, of course, always know where the North Star is because it's not going to move, but the other constellations, they do move over the course of the night and over the course of the year. So this will help you find those things. So download that. You can also download the regular star maps and some other resources that we have on our website, manitobamuseum.ca/dome@home. And Mike will put those in the chat as well. There we go. There's the links coming up. If you enjoy the show and you'd like to see more of this, please let us know what you'd like to see. We already got a topic on life in the universe that we'll be adding to our future repertoire. If there are constellations you want to see, if you want to know about telescopes, drop us an email. You can hit us at skyinfo@manitobamuseum.ca, or you can find us on Facebook, the Manitoba Museum. You can also find us on YouTube, where this will be uploaded shortly if you want to watch it again. And of course, we will also be able to view the program starting again next week. So Thursdays at 7, put it on your calendar. Join us for, there we go, sorry about that. Join us for Dome at Home, which will run at 7 o'clock on Thursdays. Thank you all so much for coming. It's great to see so many folks. I'll join you in the Facebook page for the Manitoba Museum in just a few minutes, and I can answer some more questions there. Thanks everyone for coming. Have a great day and clear skies.